It is an honor to have our next guest in the studio. Yeah, and I know that Rob and Danielle and LB just want you to come in here and make fun of me as a young broadcaster. But our next guest is a radio legend, a television legend, an entrepreneur, and has written the story of his life. His name is John Garabedian. Many of you may know John. I mean, John has been on every radio station in Boston and has had a national program which is called the Open House Party for a long, long time. So many of you, I'm sure, have heard John over the years, and it's great to have you here this morning.
Well, it's great to be here, Greg. Good morning. I'm not used to speaking this early. I couldn't believe coming in how many people are up.
People are up actually this early?
Yeah, like an hour ago. I hit the road. It's like, wow.
Well, didn't you do a morning show, though, in your career?
I did.
Where's that, in Worcester?
In Worcester, yes.
What station was that?
At WORC.
WORC.
It was a top 40 station back before there was a WAAF.
Before WAAF must have been there, but
no,
it was...
WAAF went on the air in 1968. It was an FM adjunct to another AM station, WAAB.
Right,
which used to be in Boston, but the FCC made the move to Worcester because of something to do with duopoly.
Yeah. Top 40 radio. I mean, you think about the kind of, like, you know, the golden years of this. We'll call this segment "How to Confuse a Millennial." But you know, for those millennials who are listening right now, AM radio. When you started, AM radio was the place to be.
It was the only thing. No one listened to FM. And top 40 radio back then was called rock radio because most top 40 was rock, starting in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And then in came the pop element, and it became more pop, and Phil Spector and all that.
When you go back, Danielle, I know you want him to make fun of me. Stop. Yeah, go ahead. Ask your question. Go ahead. You're chomping at the bit.
I want to know how you got your job. I want to know how that came to be.
John hired me for his video music TV station.
Well, let's go back before that.
Okay, let's go back before that.
I was at WBCN, which we can now say on AAF.
Yeah, we can say
there's no more BCN.
Because we put them out of business. Yes, there is no WBCN anymore.
And I got this fan letter back in the days when people sent letters.
Don't call it a fan letter. It's not a fan. Oh, go ahead. All right.
It was a letter from a 16-year-old kid in Stowe.
It was a letter from a 16-year-old boy in Stowe. Yes.
He said, "You're my favorite disc jockey. I'd like to come in and watch you do your show. Can I do this?" And all right. So I thought,
I'm never going to live this down.
Ever.
I am never going to live this down.
I just want to know one thing. I apologize for interrupting, John.
Yes.
Did you write the letter in the fake music studio in between the house and the garage?
Yes, I wrote the letter in my home radio station that I set up to broadcast to myself. Yes. So the letter said, "Can I come watch your show?"
So you came in and hung out and said, "Can I come back next week?" Yeah. And I thought, this kid really loves radio. And when you see someone that kind of fire and passion who loves something, there aren't a lot of people in any field who are like that, who are just so focused. And you became my intern.
Yes.
At the same time, we were building V66, and we needed what in radio are called interns, but in television they're called production assistants. So you became basically the slugs who go get the coffee.
Yes, that's what I did.
And that was you.
Yes.
And then we had an opening for a video editor, and you became an editor.
Yes.
And then Chris, whatever his name was, the senior editor, left to go to some high-paying job in New York.
Oh, is that how you're toting it? It wasn't the part where how Hillman made the climb the chain. So he ratted out the other two interns that got caught smoking pot. Okay, and then the senior guy was like probably having sex with somebody in the office, and bam.
No, LB, I did not push people out. People moved. They moved along their way. But video editing, it was you tell people now who can edit things digitally the way we used to
sit at home on your phone. You do video editing.
You can do things on your phone. We used to do not only video editing, but when you used to have to take audio tape, physical tape, slice it with a razor blade, and then tape it together in order to make a commercial.
Right.
So I mean, the business has changed. It's changed an awful lot. And John's book, which is called The Harmony of Parts, is about not only about his life, but a lot about radio and a lot about things like, I mean, I was as an amateur musicologist, I was really impressed with some of the stories about like Led Zeppelin, about playing Led Zeppelin first or
Stairway to Heaven.
Playing Stairway to Heaven. And if you could tell people a little bit about that, because back then you really didn't want to play songs that were more than 3 or 4 minutes long or what have you, right? I mean, there was like Light My Fire and stuff like that.
Well, that was at WMEX, and that was back when we actually were. Back then, WBCN was what they called freeform, which means the disc jockeys play whatever they want, with what they liked.
Wow.
And the attitude was, if it becomes a hit or if Top 40 plays it, we're not going to play that.
They didn't want to play it.
It's too popular.
Yeah.
So they would play anything but the hits, and it was and the ratings showed it.
Yeah.
And so
kind of like this show.
So WMEX, we wanted to go after the people who loved the coolness of what was then WBCN, but yet not. So we would play long cuts. We would play the long version of Light My Fire. We'd play the long version of Green Grass and High Tides Forever.
Ooh, the Outlaws. Yes.
So in came, so that year, so we started playing a lot of songs. WRKO was the big Top 40 leader in Boston at that time.
Now the talk station haven't played music for a long time, but they were like the big number one.
Howie
top
Carr
40.
Was still doing something.
He was like 40 years. He was writing his column. Howie,
40 years ago. So we had to come up with a playlist that was an alternative to WRKO's Top 40 list, but that was cooler. And their big hole in their research was they based their airplay on what was selling. And what's selling is not what people want to hear if they're listening to your radio station. So we opened up the request lines and we did this interactive thing where people would call and tell us. So as a result, we broke like about 20 songs back then, including what was the number one song of the year, Maggie May.
Rod Stewart.
Which was the flip side of the 45.
What's that?
The
what's
label
a 45?
Yes,
Rob, what's a 45?
Ask Mom.
Ask Mom. Ask Grandma.
So the guy. So this is at the end of the year after we'd had all this, and we had this reputation of being open to new music. And Atlantic Records sent their rep in from New York, who just had the acetate of the Stairway to Heaven album, which I'd call it the name of the album, but the album had no name. Led Zeppelin decided they wanted no writing on the cover. Artists get out of their minds when they get the power. They really do. They get crazy. And that's what happened to Prince.
Yeah.
He became so powerful, he just killed his own career.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we came in with the album one afternoon, hot off the presses. Nobody had it. We listened to the cuts. I went, wow, this is interesting. Listen to this flute and the whole thing, how it starts and builds, and that's Stairway to Heaven, and that's Led Zeppelin. Yeah, do you think when you think of radio today, do you think those days were, you were talking about listener requests and deciding what songs were going to be played based on true listener requests and things like that? Do you think radio is better off today, or do you think music radio is better off today or worse off today? Music radio is better off in a way because there's so much research that goes into what the audiences want to hear. And so when you have the research, you're really tuning in. The flip side of that is you lose the variety because it turns out that it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the songs that test well are the ones that people want to hear, but it's only 20% of the songs that are good. Yeah. So you have a much narrower playlist. Yeah. But then for that you have your streaming. Spotify's there. You can Spotify, Pandora, all that stuff. Cuts by Metallica. There you go.
Do you remember what the reception was for playing Zeppelin that first time? Like, were people shocked by it? Did they love it immediately? Were they taken back? Did you
Stairway to Heaven? Yeah, but Zeppelin didn't start in 1970. Zeppelin actually, their first single was Communications Breakdown.
Huh.
And Whole Lot of Love. Whole Lot of Love was their first number one song.
I imagine that was love.
Huge.
Right? So then Stairway
it was like nothing else. You heard this, you said, where did this come from? Yeah. So it was like nothing anybody had ever heard before. No. It was so powerful.
Yeah. My son is going to be 2, and he likes Elvis. I don't know why. And that's what always sticks in my head, that he's hearing this for the first time, and when Elvis broke that barrier of bringing rock and roll and his hips, to people. I can't imagine being shocked by that, but I guess there's a lot of people, because we'll debut new kind of stuff on the air, and we hear a very mixed review of things. So I was wondering if, Zeppelin has just always been oh, this is an instant classic, we love it, or were there the haters?
Well, I don't remember any haters.
Yeah. See,
But
it's just good
not
rock and roll.
It's a male-oriented band. I mean, the women who love rock are not in the majority.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you think about radio. Like, we joke about being old on the show, or listeners joke about me being old. But the only way to hear a song was to hear it on the radio. There was you could not, and the only way to learn about bands was to get to buy the album and read what they wrote on the liner notes.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so ridiculous.
Double live.
Doesn't it sound so ridiculous? Can we tell the Tom Petty story?
Sure.
I would like for you. So John Garabedian.
I wasn't there. Mark Parenteau told me this story.
All right, but it's in the book.
But it's an urban legend around Boston of how it is. I called Mark up. Mark, what really happened? All right, here's what it was.
Yeah. So John Garabedian is here. John's written a book which is called The Harmony of Parts. He, as Danielle wanted to point out, I wrote him a letter, a fan letter, when I was 16, and he gave me my first radio job at V66. So, but tell the Tom Petty story.
Well, WBCN in those days was a little different.
Yeah.
And I do not encourage drug use among anyone. However,
no, you don't encourage drug use.
According to Mark
Parenteau, who was a
legend.
A legendary Boston radio personality, passed away sadly recently. But yes, okay, according to him.
So Tom Petty comes in for an interview, and of course Mark has his favorite Coke dealers show up, and back then everything was on vinyl and turntables, and back then broadcast turntables had 4 speeds. There was 33, 45, and 78. There was also 16, which talking books were on, and other things, because you don't need high quality for that. They went very slowly. So Mark would put an LP, which is a vinyl 12-inch record, on the turntable. And the deal was the Coke dealer would lay out this barber pole of cocaine in a big, long line.
Yeah.
And turn the turntable on a 16, and each person would take a turn, and whoever did the most won.
Oh, my God.
Now, the kicker to the story is Mark says he got a Christmas card from Tom Petty the following Christmas, and he said he tried to do it again, but they couldn't find a turntable that went 16. And then about 6 or 7 years later, Tom Petty returned, and he was shocked because the turntables were gone. It was all CDs and cartridges.
You talk in the book a lot about going to shows, and I was wondering, when you think back now, what would you consider to be, whether it was Led Zeppelin who played here in the city, or when you think about concerts that you now realize, you saw an amazing band in an amazing venue. What would you name?
The one that jumps out at me, that blew me away, was at the Worcester Centrum, which is what it was called back, the DCU Center.
Yeah.
Green Day.
Green Day.
They were
first time you saw.
Billy Joe is such a brilliant entertainer.
Yeah.
And they're great musicians.
Yeah, they are. And they were just at the House of Blues.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. So if you want to, by the way, the 508 texter says this is one of the best interviews ever on this show, because I think people don't know a lot about what the early days of radio were like, or just are intrigued by the way. I mean, radio was where you got your news, where you heard about what was going on. There was no other way other than the newspaper to find that out, and so it was a very different time. And certainly a very different time was V66, which is where you gave me my job.
And by the way, I had these lying around for years. I thought, perfect.
Oh, look, he brought a V66 T-shirt in.
I have one for everybody.
Oh, you got
That's
one for
awesome.
everybody.
Thank you so
Fabulous.
much, man.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, that's
Danielle,
awesome.
I want you to take a picture of that.
Oh, that's
There you go.
adorable. Hold on a second.
For those who don't know, for those of you who are not old, V66 was a local video music station that John started to go up against MTV. And MTV had come on 6 months before
They
V6?
came on in 82. We came on in 85.
Okay, all right. So MTV had started, but of course you had to have cable. And a lot, again, how to confuse a millennial, a lot of people didn't have cable back
Like
then.
70% of people. Boston didn't have cable at all. City of Boston.
The city of Boston this is another amazing thing. The city of Boston in 1985 did not have cable TV. So the only way for people to see music videos was this new video music TV station, which was V66, and which was, I mean, it was popular. You ended up selling it to the Home Shopping Club, and that's why you're a millionaire now and own planes and all the rest of that stuff. Because you got out of radio, you're able to make some money by getting out.
Radio.
but you didn't make your money from radio like the rest of us.
Yes, I did.
Oh, yes, you did. Yeah. Well, by being an owner. It was popular, but it was a little bit ahead of its time, essentially.
Well, the bottom line, what happened to be, we put it on the air and everybody watched. We were reaching 2 million households every week, which is fantastic. The problem was the share of audience, what they call time spent viewing. Just like in radio, it's time spent listening. How long will the listener stay tuned? And what we found was, we did this, the ratings would come in, and the time spent viewing was very small. So we went over to Cambridge, we had this room, we had these research people come in, and we did what's called a focus group, where people sit around, they talk about what they watch. And it turned out everyone loved V66, but they'd watch it for like maybe 2 videos.
Yeah.
And then the clicker. What else is on? Yeah. Oh, look, it's the Patriots or the Celtics. And then you're sitting there for 3 hours, and then you go back for 2 more videos. No. So we realized quickly that a station that just plays videos will never have a huge time spent viewing. So we had to go to something which in the internet world is called sticky programs, for the beginning, middle, and end that you get sucked into.
Yeah. And then you end up getting an offer from Home Shopping Network or whatever it was called.
Well, the way it went was the second year we were in operation, Merrill Buckhalter, who was our CFO, came in. We sat down, Arnie Ginsberg and I, and going over the budgets for the rest of the year. And she said, well, we have enough cash to get to Thanksgiving, but not Christmas. So we went, okay, we have 2 choices here. Go raise some more money or go to the brokers.
And you went to sell. All right, well, hold on a second. This is Paul, who's on this morning. Hello, Paul.
Hey, morning, you guys. Hey,
What's up?
Greg, I have to say, best interview. Mr. Garabedian, remember, I mean, you got to understand, there's a whole generation of 6th through 8th graders in the mid-'80s that watch nothing but you guys. So, and also, there's a deep appreciation for how big Greg's head was in a studio. I don't know how far back you brought that camera, but his melon was huge. So, quick question. I mean, and you kind of answered some of it with the pressures between MTV and then the other regional stations. I mean, was there more of a challenge? The Boston market, and I forget who was mayor in Boston at the time or governor. Were there pressures from the state also, against what you guys were doing?
Drugs?
I don't. Drugs was what everybody was doing. No, I don't think.
Kevin White was the mayor.
Kevin White was the mayor.
City was.
Yes, he pronounced the city in that way. Yes. I mean, I think they were. I think they were in favor of it. I think they were in favor of V66. I don't think there was pressure
they were all
from.
cool about it. Yeah, very cool.
Well,
they wanted to get on.
They're
politicians.
They're politicians, right? Yeah, they are.
Put my
what do
face
you
on
think?
TV.
What do you think is the future of radio? Do you think radio? The death of radio has been predicted for decades since television. Television was going to kill it. Satellite was going to kill it.
The Walkman was going to kill it.
The Walkman was going to kill it.
On and on and on. It's like after the nuclear holocaust, there'll be 2 things left on Earth: cockroaches and radio.
And radio. Radio's never going away.
No, and it won't because Spotify is the new thing.
Yeah.
Downloading from iTunes is over. Finished. Goodbye. It's all about being live with the music you want. You pick up your phone, you go, boom, any song you want, it's all right there. And that's great. But what that's replaced is the old record collection. Yeah. It didn't replace radio. Radio, like here we are. We're not playing music. We're talking.
We're talking.
And it's the companionship, the connection with other human beings, the connection to your community. I'm sitting here with you, Greg, in these beautiful WAAF Entercom studios overlooking the Mass Pike, traffic going 3 miles an hour into the Austin toll booth.
Yeah.
Which you've come a long way since the Cocaine Realty building in Worcester.
Yes, we have come a long way. Yes, we have.
Remember that.
Yes, we do. No, we've come a long way.
But it's radio is is your connection to human beings, and that is totally separate. Now, FM may go away. It'll all be online. It'll all be streamed. Why do you need these transmitters? The connected car is coming in. Your dial's going to have all these. Your iPhone desktop is going to be on your dashboard, and it is in like 15% of cars right now.
Yeah, it's like the app. It's like people listen to us on the app now. It's
the app, and bang, there it is.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for giving me. You answered that letter. I wrote a letter. You answered that letter. You gave me. You helped me start a career. So I want to thank you very much for that.
Well, you deserve your career, and I want to say to everyone who makes Greg is the best. He is the greatest guy. He's totally focused. Aside from his obvious talent, no, he's the best. He really is. He always has been.
That's an amazing story. From a letter. I mean, that's a pretty passionate statement for a young person that wants to get into any business.
I got to thank my late father for driving me in. He had to drive me in to Boston to intern for him at WBCN every Saturday, and he was none too happy about it. But he did it.
One of the things in my book that I think is the overall theme. People say, "Oh, it's about radios." It's not. It's about life, and it's about starting out as a kid, born in Cambridge, growing up in Belmont and Weston, and then quitting the University of Miami. Because I thought, this is boring. I got 3.5 more years of this. I could be 3.5 years further into my career. That's all I could think of. Just like you, I was focused on what I wanted to do. So, if you're listening, whatever job you have, if you have the passion and drive, like Greg did, to do what you want to do and love something, you've got to love something.
And you got to choose something to do that involves your passion, because then you're going to be happy doing it for hours and hours and hours.
And when you hit those obstacles, which everybody hits in every field, you have the passion to drive through it.
Yeah. Well, the book is called The Harmony of Parts by John Garabedian, and it's been great to have you here. Great to see you again.